can masking preserve the format and realism of data while still protecting the sensitive information? And how is it important?
Yeah, so see, technically speaking, I would say tokenization and masking, or rather each of these three terms, they are often used interchangeably in the industry. Especially tokenization and masking is something which can be overlapped. So with regards to what kind of masking are you performing, it really matters. So modern data masking solutions, they do preserve the format or length and the realism of the data while they actually replace the original sensitive values. And this is where most of your scenarios with respect to, say, performing any development or testing kind of activities for organizations, they rely on the masking techniques. So the underlying principle of tokenization or masking are terminologies or concepts such as pseudonymization or anonymization. So what happens in anonymization is it is where you are actually redacting certain values, and it is like a one-time activity that you're performing on the masking, so you don't get the original plain text data back. So and say pseudonymization, that is the dynamic masking, that relies mostly on focusing on hiding the data from unauthorized users at runtime. So these can also be format preserving techniques. So it depends on which kind of approach you're mostly relying on. So if you're utilizing any of the format preserving mechanisms, then yes, even for tokenization as well as for masking, the data formats are preserved and the realism of the data set is also, say, maintained.
Harsh, just wanted to know about the limitation part in the tokenization. So in what situations should organization avoid relying solely on data masking?
Okay, so this is where the masking techniques, as I said, whether it is static masking or dynamic masking, nowhere are we trying to do any kind of, say, operation where the actual sensitive data is completely getting altered or say removed from the system or getting protected in a single location. So if you talk about static masking, you're from the sensitive data, you're creating a sanitized data set or a desensitized data set. The original plain text sensitive data, you're not really altering that. So that is still somewhere it is present in the system. So it doesn't, say, protect this data. And it is again not a suitable technique when the original data itself needs to be stored securely. So if there is a situation where an attacker, say, attacks on the production data set, masking doesn't offer the protection because the original data is what is getting stored. Masking is applied to the data in a different environment, or say the data at the time of retrieval that is getting dynamically masked. So this is where you to say focus on the different aspects of your entire infrastructure, focus on the exact use case. That is exactly what privacy enhanced technologies are all about, wherein to protect the data at rest, mainly you have a lot of encryption techniques which come into the picture to protect the data in transit, say, or in use. That is where you can rely on certain, say, tokenization or masking techniques. Masking most likely is something which is utilized when you're trying to present the data on the screen to any specific user. So if in a bank, there are two sets of employees or two sets of users, and for any, say, processing activities of, say, processing the loan or any claim, that particular employee of the organization does not need to view the data, complete data in plain text manner to perform the further processing. That is where masking comes into the picture. So there aren't many limitations as such with the original, so the concept of masking. It is just that relying on it solely is a dangerous proposition.